Emma Reed stepped into the night with a restless heart, walking quickly through the cool Portland streets as if the wind itself were urging her forward. She had spent the whole week carrying a heavy mix of exhaustion and disappointment, the kind that made the world feel slightly dimmer and the air feel heavier than it should. Work had drained her, an argument with her sister left her uneasy, and the silence of her apartment felt too sharp to return to. She told herself she just needed air. But deep down, she hoped the night would give her anything that felt different. She moved past glowing shop windows, passing strangers wrapped in their own worlds, and tried not to think too hard about the sudden loneliness that had crept up on her lately. Her steps were quick, almost impatient, as if she might outrun the weight on her chest if she walked fast enough. When she reached a small intersection, lit by a flickering street lamp, she paused, unsure where to go next. Turning back felt wrong. Going home felt worse. And then she saw it. A warm golden light spilling onto the sidewalk from a cafe she had never noticed before. Pine Harbor Cafe. Its windows glowed with a soft, inviting amber light, and the faint sound of mellow jazz drifted toward her like a quiet call. The place didn't match the cold, hurried night. It looked like a pocket of calm, as if time inside moved slower. Emma hesitated for only a moment. Something in her intuition maybe told her that stepping inside would change the course of her night. And for some reason she could not explain, she listened. As soon as she pushed open the door, warmth wrapped around her, gentle and comforting. The air smelled faintly of roasted coffee beans and something sweet like cinnamon. Conversations hummed softly around the room, not loud or chaotic, but warm and steady like a heartbeat. The music, a slow jazz tune, made the entire cafe feel like a safe corner of the world. Emma walked in quietly, unaware that the moment she entered, eyes had already turned to her. At the nearest table by the window sat Michael Turner. He looked up from the worn paperback in his hands the second she stepped inside. Michael was the kind of man who noticed small details. He spent his days as a school counselor, listening more than talking. The calm steadiness in his eyes made people trust him without trying. When his gaze met Emma's, something in his expression shifted, like recognition of a feeling he hadn't expected. He didn't say a word, didn't move, didn't even let the moment last too long. But something soft had already settled in his ice-quiet awareness that would follow him long after she passed by. At the counter stood Ryan Cole, a photographer from Seattle who traveled often and loved chasing moments more than comfort. His camera hung loosely around his neck, and a half-finished iced drink sat beside him. Ryan was the kind of person who brightened a room without effort, and the moment he noticed Emma scanning the menu with uncertainty, a natural smile pulled at his lips. He didn't approach her, not yet, but he watched long enough to feel a spark of curiosity. He had photographed mountains, city lights, and countless strangers, but something in the way she carried herself, quiet, thoughtful, slightly unsure, held his attention longer than he planned. And in the far corner, sketching lines onto a crisp sheet of paper, sat Daniel Hayes, an architect visiting from Vancouver. His presence was different from the other, quieter, more grounded. He was focused, brows slightly drawn, until Emma stepped inside. He glanced up, only intending to check who entered, but instead found himself staring a beat longer than expected. The gentle confusion in her eyes, the way she took a slow breath as if steadying herself, tugged at something deep in him. He didn't smile, but his pencil paused mid-line. 3 men, 3 strangers. 3 first impressions that Emma remained completely unaware of. She chose a seat by the window, hoping for nothing more than a quiet moment to gather herself. She placed her book on the table, though she had no intention of reading, and wrapped her hands around the warm cup the barista handed her. As she stared out at the drifting headlights on the street, she didn't notice Michael stealing another glance, or Ryan adjusting his camera to look her way, or Daniel subtly watching her reflection in the window. She thought she had entered the cafe to escape her thoughts, but her night had already shifted quietly and completely. Something about the room felt different, charged in a way she couldn't identify. She didn't know that the story she had been longing for, the one she hoped life would eventually give her, had already begun the moment she stepped through that warm, glowing doorway. She had wanted a simple walk, a break from the noise in her mind. Instead, she found herself in the center of a night she would carry forever, one that had already begun to change her. Even before she realized it, the cafe seemed to hum with quiet energy as Emma sipped her coffee, her fingers tracing the warm cup in a nervous rhythm. She had not expected anyone to notice her, yet she felt the weight of eyes on her from different corners of the room, each glance carrying its own unspoken curiosity. Ryan was the first to break the invisible barrier. He approached with a casual stride, camera swinging lightly at his side, his smile warm and unforced. "You look like someone who enjoys good coffee but struggles to choose the right one," he said with a light laugh that made her pause and look up. Emma chuckled, surprised by his boldness, but immediately put at ease by his easy charm. He had a way of speaking that felt like an invitation, not a pressure, and before she knew it, they were talking about everything and nothing at once, the little quirks of city life, the best spots for photography, and even the weirdly comforting sound of jazz in the background. She found herself laughing freely, a sound she hadn't realized she'd been holding back all week. While Ryan was playful and vibrant, Michael's presence remained calm, steady, and quiet. He had observed her for a few moments before speaking, waiting for the right moment to approach. He came over with a soft smile and a gentle question about the book she had brought. Emma blinked, momentarily caught off guard, but soon found herself opening up about her work, the stresses she had been carrying, and her small, secret hope for a night that felt different from the usual routine. Michael listened in a way that made her feel truly heard. Like he wasn't just waiting for his turn to speak, but genuinely interested in the words she offered. There was no rush in his voice, no expectation, just the kind of steady attention that made a person feel safe. As she spoke, she realized she was laughing again, but in a different way than with Ryan Comer, more reflective, like sharing a private thought aloud. Daniel, meanwhile, had been sketching quietly in the corner, but every so often he looked up, his pencil pausing mid-stroke as he studied her from across the room. Eventually, he found the courage to step closer, offering her a simple napkin when she accidentally brushed her sleeve against her cup and left a small spot on the table. "Sometimes it's the little things that make a difference," he said softly, and Emma smiled, appreciating his quiet attentiveness. His presence was different from the other two, more reserved, but something in the calm of his gaze drew her in, making her feel a deeper, unspoken connection. Within minutes, the three men had found their way to her table, each contributing a different energy that wrapped around her in unexpected ways. Ryan kept the conversation light and lively, weaving in stories of his travels and photographs that captured moments she could almost see through his eyes. Michael offered thoughtful observations and gentle encouragement, listening in a way that made her words feel important, like each sentence mattered. Daniel added quiet insights, the kind that lingered longer than spoken words, causing her to pause and reflect on herself and her life in a way she hadn't for a long time. Emma felt emotions she hadn't expected: curiosity, admiration even. A small flicker of longing, but there was no pressure, no rush. Only a feeling of connection that seemed to grow with each shared glance and word. Time passed faster than she realized. The outside world, dark, cold, and hurried, faded until only the four of them remained. The soft hum of the cafe and the gentle music blending with their conversation into something intimate and rare. Every laugh, every shared thought, every quiet moment created a delicate thread between them. Emma felt alive, awake in a way that surprised her, and yet there was a part of her that hesitated. She wanted to linger, to stay wrapped in the warmth of the unexpected bond forming around her, but she also felt the weight of the moment, the fear of feeling too much too quickly, of being swept away by the charm and attentiveness of three very different men. Her heart beat faster as she realized she didn't know what to do with the feelings each of them stirred in her. She was drawn to Ryan's energy, to Michael's steadiness, to Daniel's quiet intensity. And the thought of choosing or even understanding her own heart felt overwhelming. Still, she couldn't pull herself away. Each smile, each subtle gesture, each small act of kindness made the evening richer, more vivid, and more unforgettable. And as the cafe's lights dimmed slightly, signaling the approach of closing time, Emma felt a mixture of longing and anticipation knotting in her chest. She knew the night was far from ordinary, that this brief encounter with three strangers had already left a mark she wouldn't easily forget. The evening deepened, and the cafe felt like its own small universe, insulated from the cold night outside. Emma sat at the table, her cup now empty, but her heart buzzing with an energy she hadn't felt in a long time. Ryan leaned back slightly, his easy grin never fading, and started sharing a story about a photography assignment gone wrong in Seattle, his hands moving expressively as he described the chaos and the laughter that followed. Emma laughed louder than she expected, the sound surprising her with its freedom. And she realized she hadn't laughed like this in months. The way Ryan talked made the world seem bigger, brighter, and somehow more manageable. His energy was contagious, and Emma found herself matching his pace. Weaving in little details about her life, letting herself be playful and spontaneous. Just as she was catching her breath from laughing, Michael spoke, his tone calm but warm, offering a gentle insight about something she had mentioned earlier, a struggle at work. His words were not advice, not pushy or corrective, but reflective, making her think about herself in ways she hadn't considered. The contrast between Ryan's lively energy and Michael's steady presence created a rhythm that pulled Emma into a space where she felt both seen and understood. She noticed small details about him too, the way his eyes lingered on her with quiet curiosity, the subtle nods that let her know he was truly listening. And then there was Daniel, who had remained slightly reserved at first, watching quietly, sketching the world around them. But when he finally spoke, it was soft and measured, as though each word carried weight. He commented on a line in one of her sentences that seemed offhanded but held deeper meaning. And Emma realized he had been paying close attention all along. His quiet intensity stirred something unexpected in her, a mixture of curiosity and admiration, and she found herself drawn to the depth in his gaze, the careful way he observed the room without disturbing it. The three men, so different yet somehow aligned, created a dynamic that left her heart racing and her mind alert. Conversations overlapped. Stories bounced from one to another. Laughter filled the air. And Emma felt caught in a current of warmth and human connection she hadn't realized she had missed so badly. The cafe seemed to shrink around them, and for a few hours, the rest of the world, the cold streets, the worries she had brought with her ceased to exist. She noticed how Ryan's eyes sparkled when he spoke, how Michael's hand unconsciously rested near his book as if ready to catch her words, and how Daniel's slight smiles made her chest tighten with something gentle yet insistent. Every gesture, every shared glance, every laugh was magnified by the intimacy of the small space, the softness of the lighting, and the unspoken acknowledgement that they were sharing something rare. Time moved quickly, yet slowly, a paradox that left Emma both thrilled and slightly anxious. She realized she had poured pieces of herself into the conversation, thoughts she normally kept tucked away, feelings she normally masked, and the three men had met her halfway, each in their own unique way. Ryan's playful energy made her feel alive and spontaneous. Michael's calm presence gave her space to reflect and breathe. And Daniel's quiet depth invited her to linger in moments she might otherwise have rushed past. As the evening progressed, small touches of kindness and attentiveness began to feel more intentional than random. Ryan nudged her gently when she gestured too wildly with excitement. Michael offered a comforting smile when she hesitated, and Daniel's hand lingered over his notebook as if he wished he could reach out without intruding. Emma's heart swelled with a mixture of affection, curiosity, and a subtle nervous tension she couldn't quite name. She realized that while none of them had spoken about expectations or intentions, a delicate web of connection had formed, binding the four of them in a way that felt both thrilling and fragile. She noticed the slight pause in conversation when a waiter walked by. The shared laughter over a small joke that only half the table caught, and the way each man seemed to tune into her presence as if she mattered more than the noise around them. Emma understood in a quiet but insistent way that this night would linger far longer than the hours it lasted. She felt an emotional tug she hadn't anticipated. It's the kind that made her stomach tighten and her chest ache slightly with longing. The three men were no longer strangers, they were catalysts for a night that made her feel alive, appreciated, and seen in ways she hadn't realized she had been craving. And yet, with every heartbeat and every smile, there was an undercurrent of tension, a delicate awareness that this connection might vanish when the night ended, leaving only memory and what-ifs. As the cafe lights dimmed, signaling that closing time approached, Emma felt the pulse of the evening shift. Conversations slowed just slightly. Glances lingered longer, and she sensed the unspoken question hovering in the air. What would come next? She knew she could not linger in this perfect bubble forever, yet part of her wished the night would stretch on endlessly. The outside world waited, cold and indifferent. But inside that cafe, something had begun, an emotional story woven in laughter, attentiveness, and subtle glances that tugged at the heart. Emma realized she had been part of something rare and profound. A night where strangers had become companions in a fleeting but unforgettable way. As the final notes of jazz floated through the air, she looked at the three men, their expressions soft, expectant, and quietly amused. Dan felt a knot of anticipation in her chest, a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. The evening had transformed into a delicate, unspoken dance, each of them aware that the night's story was far from over. And as the shadows deepened outside and the door to the cafe drew closer, Emma knew she had to step into whatever came next, carrying with her the vivid emotions, gentle connections, and subtle sparks that had made this night something she would never forget. The night had grown colder outside, and the warmth of the cafe clung to Emma like a soft memory she didn't want to leave behind. The three men gathered around her as she finished the last sip of her coffee, each carrying a different energy that made her heart beat faster and her mind swirl with uncertainty. Ryan's easy laughter and playful charm had made her smile more than she had in months. His stories like sparks lighting up corners of her mind she hadn't realized were dark. Michael's calm steadiness grounded her, giving her a sense of safety and understanding she hadn't known she craved. And Daniel's quiet intensity had made her feel seen in ways that words couldn't capture, his eyes tracing her expressions as if he were reading a secret she hadn't told anyone. Now, standing near the cafe's door, the three of them offered her jackets almost simultaneously. And Emma laughed nervously, caught in a swirl of emotions she couldn't untangle. Ryan nudged her gently, his grin teasing but kind, suggesting they walk together for a bit, while Michael's soft voice asked if she'd like a few minutes to decide, his eyes patient and unwavering. Daniel simply waited, his quiet presence steady and unassuming. But the way he looked at her made her pulse quicken with something she couldn't name. Emma felt a rush of conflicting emotions, her chest tightening with longing and a subtle nervousness, and for a moment she felt frozen by the intensity of the moment. Each man represented a different path she could take, a different energy that pulled at her heart. She wanted to linger with Ryan's vibrant, playful side, to let herself laugh and feel carefree. She wanted to absorb Michael's steady, calming presence, to rest in his quiet understanding. She wanted to explore the depth and subtlety of Daniel's gentle intensity, the kind of connection that promised more than words could convey. Standing there, Emma realized that the night had already become unforgettable, that these three strangers had created a space in her heart she hadn't expected to open, a space filled with warmth, laughter, understanding, and quiet curiosity. And yet, the pull of reality tugged at her, the cold wind outside, the world waiting beyond the cafe door, and the unspoken pressure of making a choice she wasn't ready for. Emma took a deep breath, trying to steady herself as she looked from one to another. I don't know what to say," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly but not breaking, her hands brushing the soft fabric of the jacket Ryan had offered. Ryan's grin softened and he shook his head, laughing lightly. You don't have to say anything yet. Just walk a little, talk a little. See where it goes, he suggested, his energy light but reassuring. Michael's gaze softened even more, and he added quietly, We'll follow your pace, whatever you decide. No rush. Daniel's subtle smile didn't need words. His presence alone communicated patience, understanding, and a quiet hope that Emma would make a choice when she was ready. She felt her heart swell with gratitude, confusion, and something deeper she couldn't name. The three men had turned her ordinary evening into something extraordinary. And now, as the night air brushed against her cheeks, she realized how rare and unexpected moments like this truly were. Emma started walking slowly, her steps uncertain at first as the three men flanked her. The city lights reflected on the wet pavement, creating trails of gold and silver that seemed to stretch endlessly, mirroring the flood of emotions inside her. Each man matched her pace differently, Rianne with light, teasing commentary about the city streets, Michael with quiet observations and gentle encouragement.